This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
Our guests today are actor Eric Bana and writer-director Jordan Scott. As always, we'll talk about where it all began, where their passion came from, and their new movie, A Sacrifice, also starring Sadie Sink. This is a bonus episode of A Life in Film.
My podcast is usually about how people's careers started and how they got their foot in the door and where that passion for what they do came from. And I'd love to start with you, Jordan. How did you get into directing? How did you get into writing?
Music videos. It all started with music videos, yeah, like teeny tiny budgets, and you have to, you hear a song, you got to come up with some crazed idea for it. And that's what I did for years and years and years.
Well, you've got a couple of feature films under your belt now. So is that the way is that where you want to be? That's where you want to go. I mean, this film's fantastic. Are you going to keep doing feature films from now on, do you think?
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely.
No plans to go back.
Fair enough. And Eric, how did your career begin?
Oh, I came in through the side door. So I started out in stand-up comedy many, many years ago, and then went from stand-up comedy to sketch comedy. And then whilst doing sketch comedy, I saw behind the curtain and I went, you know what? I think I can do that. And had a go at drama. And I've always been intrigued, always, loved thrillers and drama when I was growing up. And yeah, it's not a well-trodden path. It's a very difficult path, the way I got into the business, but I wouldn't change anything.
That's that's a very obscure bit of knowledge. I didn't realize that you started in comedy. That's mad. Yeah. I wouldn't have guessed from your, the films that you've done. And in terms of, there's my podcast, we have actors, we have producers, directors, writers, people listen to this to get inspiration. Do you have any advice for people trying to get their foot in the door in terms of, young actors starting out? And then for you, Jordan, as well, writers trying to get their foot in the door. Any advice that you would give?
I think it's really important to be patient. And I know it's so easy to say that, but I think it's just so true. None of us really know when our time's going to come, if it is going to come, if you're lucky enough. And yeah, I think you have to be driven and you have to try and stay motivated. But I think you also just have to really surrender to the idea that patience really is required. I started in the business late. I didn't have any real success until I was, well into my late 20s. And I'm really thankful for that. And so I think I talk to a lot of young kids that want to act. I'm like, you got time on your side. Like you got time on your side. So I think patience is the thing.
Fair enough. What about me, Eric? I'm 36 now, and do you reckon there's enough time for me to still get my foot in the door?
Loads.
Okay, good.
No, there's no end date, man. There's no use-by date on us.
I love that.
Peaking early is bad.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You
Don't peak early.
And Jordan, any advice to young writers, young directors?
I mean, I like patience more. I was going to say it's an endurance game. It's tenacity. It's just, just keep on putting one foot in front of the other. And eventually, hopefully you'll get something made. But yeah, it's an endurance game. It's a marathon for sure.
Keep going.
Most embarrassing moments,
Do you have an embarrassing moment, perhaps on set, perhaps for you, Eric, an audition moment, maybe a directing moment? Any embarrassing moments you're willing to share with our audience?
It's an embarrassing moment for me. I don't know.
I think you really put you on the spot there.
I'm constantly mortified. So
well, you're English. That's the state that we're in constantly anyway.
Yeah.
I can see Eric's thinking about it.
Which one do I draw from?
My most obvious, I mean, as a former stand-up, I mean, you never forget your first death on stage. It's something that stays in your body, like physically in your body. And it's once you bounce back from that, it's a pretty amazing feeling. And I love that about stand-up. It's like you're as good as you are tonight. That's it. No one cares what happened last night. No one saw it. No one gives a rat's. And I try to treat acting the same way. Doesn't matter how many films you've done, doesn't matter what you've been in. It just means absolutely nothing to the audience when they go to see your film.
Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly.
Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/lifeandfilm, where you'll get episodes early and uncut, amongst other treats. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life and Film Pod, and find our video episodes on YouTube by searching Elliot James Langridge Life and Film. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9-to-5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeandfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeandfilm.
And back to the show.
Guys, this film was so intense. I loved it, really enjoyed it. I was holding onto the sofa while I was watching it.
Right.
How did this project come about? Obviously, Jordan, you wrote this, adapted it from a book. But how did that come about? How did this book land on your desk?
A producer that I work with called Mike Pross found the book, and we were both kind of, I don't know, we were both really into the idea of making a film in Japan, which ultimately we ended up making a film in Berlin. But it's a fascinating book, and it's just, I think there's a lot of very interesting psychological threads in there, the father-daughter story, and just set against a sort of terrifying cult backstory. So it was ticked a lot of boxes for me, but yeah, it was a great book.
I feel like I was watching this and I was kind of going along with the cult, thinking, yeah, I get it. I see what they're trying to do at the beginning, and then it all obviously goes horribly wrong. Eric, in terms of you being involved in this film, what was the process? How did you get involved?
Jordan sent me the script and I loved it immediately. We jumped on a Zoom and it was done. Like, I was like, please, I'd love to play Ben. Can I please play Ben? I just loved it. I thought it was so well written, and I loved the world. I loved everything it spoke about and spoke to in terms of isolation and our sense of needing to belong to something inherently as human beings, and also the irony of like people who are kind of like seemingly rejecting society and structure ending up in a structure that's really speaks to that. And I think coming out of the pandemic, it's just there are just so many themes that are so much easier for us to understand. This is not as much of a stretch as it would be for the audience 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies that you just don't know where it's going as well. I was convinced. In fact, I don't want to give it away for the audience that are watching this.
No.
But no, I don't want to give it away. But I was convinced that something was going to happen, and then it didn't happen. I was, the impending doom that was coming. But it is one of those movies that you just don't know where it's going. In terms of, obviously writing and directing this movie, it feels like you mentioned there that it was originally going to be shot somewhere else and then shot in Berlin. How come you ended up settling with Berlin?
When we couldn't go to Japan, I was looking for a way into a sort of, a different culture. that somehow spoke to the idea of collectivism. And I thought, well, Germany, East Germany was under, a sort of in a collective mindset for about 40 years, when it was under communist rule. So I thought that was a really interesting parallel and an interesting kind of, way into the culture.
What a great place to get to go and shoot as well. And I was watching it, and there was one moment, I mean, correct me if I may be completely wrong. Was it all shot in Germany, or is there any moments, because where was the lake?
Just outside of Berlin.
Was it? That's really weird. It looks so much like a place in England, in Surrey, called Frensham Ponds, and I was convinced. I was convinced. Okay, I'm well off there. I thought
it might have been slightly warmer in Surrey, but no.
Fair enough. No, I appreciate both of you, and thank you so much, and all the best with the movie. It's great, and yeah, good luck with the hundreds of other people you're talking to, and hopefully I stood out a little bit from all those other people. Thanks, guys. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you to our guests Eric and Jordan, and thank you to 42 West for organising. As always, thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp. A Sacrifice is on Now TV and Sky in the UK now.